welcome to another tech vid. Today I'm going to be talking to you about grip tape for road style handlebars. So basically what we're looking at here is just the tape that is basically wrapped around the bar the whole way around. Not much more to it than that really. So basically what the reason why we're going to want to replace this, and as opposed to when we're going to want to replace this, generally speaking, it's just a question of wear and tear. You're going to see it start to get frayed out. One of the jobs that does require us to replace it at the same time, however, is the replacement of our cables and cable housing. Since the cables and cable housing, most of the modern bikes, they're going to be running underneath the grip tape. We need to take the grip tape off in order to replace them. So a lot of the times if the grip tape's a little bit worn out, it ends up getting torn. Generally speaking, personally, it's the type of thing, just on principle, I like to do that job at the same time. So if I'm going to replace my cables, I'm going to replace the grip tape as well. If I'm going to replace the grip tape, I'm going to replace my cables as well. It keeps things a little bit more consistent. With regards to what we're going to need for this job, it's pretty straightforward. We don't need a huge amount. First thing we're going to need is our grip tape. So basically what you're going to have in your box of grip tape, you're going to have 2 rolls of the actual tape. It's going to look something like this here. You're going to have a bar end. There's 2 different types of these ones. Some will be just pressed in with pressure and they'll just hold themselves in with little plastic ridges on there. Otherwise you'll have some like this where you'll have a little bolt on the inside. And so when I tighten that bolt, basically it's going to bring a little cone on the other end further in, so it's going to expand and that's going to hold it in place. Generally speaking, it's a little bit more solid, but it's not a huge deal which one you have. And you're going to have 2 lengths of finishing tape. Type of thing that on my personal equipment, I tend to just disregard this and I just use my electrical tape like so, because this I tend to get a little bit of a better finish with this. The thing with the grip tape, with the finishing tape like that, is a lot of the times it starts to come undone. So it's eventually, personally I'm not a huge fan of using this, but I'll show you guys how to use this. Then we're going to need a good pair of scissors, because we're going to be cutting through our tape and our electrical tape as well. So we want something that's going to do a nice clean cut. And sometimes, in my instance, since I've got the little bolt, I'm going to need a little Allen key as well. You can see here, I've got a separate length of tape because I already installed one side. So I've got my leftover here, and I'm going to keep this to do what I call a filler. So basically, that comes into play where there's 2 different types of technique that you can use. One is you just go with one solid length, and you can do a few turns around your brake lever or your shifter. So you can do a few turns, a figure 8 type pattern. That basically leaves you with a little bit of a bulky space here, just at the base of your shifter brake lever. So I'm not a huge fan of that. If you want to have a little bit more of a cleaner job, you can use the filler. So you basically just take your length and you put it right here. And then all you're going to need to do is basically go around it once on the bottom, go over, and then continue around. So you're going to have a much less bulk in this area around your shifter lever combo. A little bit more of a cleaner job. Both ways working. Alright, get to the demo. Alright, so the first thing that we're going to want to do basically is if you're going to use the technique where you have the filler piece, basically we're going to want to set that up, get that sized out right away, because it's not going to be very easy to do if you're trying to hold down your tape at the same time. You can use clamps to hold it into place and whatnot, but generally speaking, if you have it cut and sized out before, you can kind of just hold it with one hand, stick it in place, and then continue wrapping. It goes a little bit easier. So basically all I want to do for this is I want to kind of put it almost up underneath the plastic at the base of the shifter brake lever, and I want to bring it around to the other side, and I'm just going to cut it right here so that it's as flush as possible with the other side of the shifter brake lever. And what you want to cover is the metal clamp that's holding your brake lever on. I like to line it up on the inside, bring it around to the outside, and then cut it like that. Whichever is more comfortable for you should be the way you do it. From anyone who's watching that may be left-handed, feel your pain. For the lefties out there, it's going to be even more important to have a really good pair of scissors, just because, well, you might be better at it than I am, but scissors tend to be my natural enemy. So now we've got this, lines up almost perfect. I'm going to take a little bit more off on this side. We're lining up almost perfect. Check this out again. And we're good. So I mean, generally speaking, there is a little bit of glue on the back of your grip tape to hold it into place. It's usually, I mean, you want to put it on very tight. So a lot of times, like if I put this on like this now, it's going to probably fall off as I'm wrapping the rest of it. So I'm just going to leave it aside within reach. And then I'm going to do one step, which I tend to forget a lot of the time, and that is getting my electrical tape ready so that I'm not fumbling with it and holding the tape down at the same time. There's my end. I'm not a fan of folding over my electrical tape because it just means there's an extra bit of waste that I have to cut off when I'm doing a job like this. So I tend to leave it fully flattened down. Just lift a little bit up before I start the job, that way I'm not fumbling around with it too much. I'll take the plastic wrapping off. Get rid of that. And there we go. So you see right now there's a little bit of paper, 3M paper on the inside. So you just want to kind of, you can take it all off to start if you want. I tend to just get it started and then keep going from there. Then, the way I tend to start out, the main thing with this, I mean, if you can start to the outside or you can start to the inside, it's not a huge deal, but you want to do it the same way on both sides, because that way you're going to have, your line is going to be going the same direction on both sides. So I like to start going around the outside, and basically the amount, you want to always leave a certain amount past the end of the bar, because that's going to fold in when we put our bar in, and that's going to give us a nice clean finish. With this one here, you can kind of go and just line it up with the tape, but I mean, generally speaking, a little bit more than a centimeter usually is about right. And so the first turn, kind of hold it down all the way around. And then as I come over, I'm going to start this tape. Really got to pull on this one to get it nice and tight. So as I come over for my second loop, that's when I'm going to start moving down a little bit. And then once I've gotten myself started, I basically just want to cover half of the tape as I'm going over with the next loop each time. Depending on the type of grip tape you're using, there are some that are going to be more solid than others. The one I'm using right now is one of the more solid types, so I mean I really have to pull on it, but you want to be kind of careful because you can tear them, some of the softer ones. There's a lot, like I like to use, on some of my bikes I like to use ones that are made out of cork. One, because they're a little bit less expensive, and cork is also very, very efficient at absorbing vibrations, so it tends to be very comfortable as well. That being said, it wears out a little quicker, it's a little bit more fragile. So as we start coming to the curve, the gap on the inside should start to get a little bit smaller, and the gap on the outside a little bit bigger, just to go around the bend in the bar. Now, pretty close to my brake lever clamp, so I'm going to put my extra piece in there. Hopefully that doesn't just fall out. Alright. So now, this is the key part as we're going around our brake lever shifter combo. Basically you want to be I have my bottom stroke done here. So basically I'm covering the bottom corner of my extra piece. And as I come around on the outside, I'm going to go above. Like so. And then come back underneath. And you really want to keep it nice and tight for this part, because otherwise that's going to be a loose point and it's going to be fairly annoying. You go a little bit further in. Alright, so let's see here, I've got a little bit that's sticking out right there, so that's something I want to come back and fix up. There we go. And this is one of those places where, I mean, you want to take reference points every now and then where you can kind of like stop and see if you need to go back, because you don't want to get right to the end, put your finishing tape on, and then not realize, oh, there's a little bit sticking out here, there's a loose bit, and have to go all the way back and do everything and then restart. So I tend to do the bottom part here up to the shift brake shift lever combo, kind of inspect my work, do around the brake lever and inspect my work, and then I'll do the rest, inspect my work, then I'll cut and put the tape on. So far so good. I can keep going. Again, pull a little bit more of this. I'm going to take this off all the way now so that's not in my way. My last loop for the curve, and now that I'm back onto the straight bit, I'm going to go back to covering, overlapping half of my previous loop. Still got a little bit of glue from the old grip tape here. I should have cleaned that off properly before. That's alright. And let's say you're installing a new handlebar, or you don't know exactly where you want to finish up. The thing you want to do is you want to keep in mind that chances are you are going to want to put maybe a light, maybe speedometer on there. So you want to keep in mind you want to have enough space on your handlebar to install something like that. So basically, right now I've gone a little bit further, but what we're going to do is we're going to cut into this. So I'm going to end up having a line somewhere around here, about the same thing as on the other side. And so I'm going to go right about there. And I want my end result, I want it to come down just before my wire here. So basically I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to cut it right about here. And again, try not to judge me too much. I'm left-handed. Scissors are my worst enemy. There we go. And so the bend here is another part where it's a little bit more tricky than when the bar is straight, because you really need to put a fair amount of tension. so that it's going to be flat and that you're not going to have a part of your grip tape sticking up on the outside of the turn. And again, you want to have basically on the outside of the curve, you're going to have a little bit more space between your overlaps. On the inside, it's going to be a little less. And the last thing we want to do is basically we want to cut into an angle so that with the angle that we have in our wrap, I want to cut into it at an angle so that I'm going to have a nice straight line when I finish. So I'm going to undo about half a turn like so, and then you want to start towards the inside, so towards your next loop, and you want to cut in and go at something close to maybe like a 45-degree angle towards the other side. So the reason why I did that basically is because on this side I was further towards my stem than on the other side. Don't really want it to be uneven. Just doesn't look great. You know what, I've actually gone a little bit too far, so I'm going to take another loop off. Even with the other side now. Now I can take my electrical tape and do a nice tight loop to start out with. Then with my second loop, I'm going to just go a little bit further than the edge and do again a nice tight loop, so that my tape's basically going to fold down and just cover the edge. I don't want to go too far over, I just want it to fold down, so I don't want to have extra tape on the bar, but I want it to just kind of fold over, and so that's covering the edge of my grip tape. So then I'm going to come back and I'm just going to do a nice light loop on the outside. And now I just want to cut it so that my cut mark is going to be on the bottom, so just leaving enough here. Do a nice clean cut, and that's the part where you never want to just tear it off. And I've seen a lot of people bike shops where I work that'll just tear the electrical tape. But you end up with generally speaking, it's going to be stretched out. It might be folded over, so you end up with a rougher finish if you do it like that. Then next, we're going to take. First I'll fold down the rubber here. So you don't want to leave that folded too much because the rubber can get a crease in it. Especially these ones that are a little bit on the older side, so a little bit more fragile. So I'll fold down. I'm going to take my finishing tape and just going to remember which way I went on the other side. This. So I'm going to put it down fairly tight. Not quite as much as the electrical tape though. If you put it too tight, it's just going to, with its elasticity, it's just going to kind of come unstuck. And then we want to go follow the line from our electrical tape. Get it as straight as possible. Put it right back around like that. There we have. Got a nice clean finish for that. And our last step is going to be to put our little bar end in. So I'm just going to loosen this bolt off a tiny bit, make it a little bit easier for me to get it in. And then what you want to do basically is you want to kind of, I just basically fold down one little part with my thumb, and then I'll get the other side with the bar end, and then kind of just push it in like that. And then if you don't have the type where it's screwed, I mean that's all there is to it. If you got the type with the little bolt and wedge, you gotta tighten, and you just take your Allen key, tighten that up. basically until you start to have a little bit of resistance, until it stops wobbling around. It doesn't need to be ridiculously tight. There you go. So, give you guys a little bit of a close-up to see what that looks like. So you can see both sides, my lamps are going towards the center. So that's nice and clean, nice and continual. We've got just about the same sizing all the way around on both sides, and we've got a nice finish with our finishing tape here. And on the other end, that's kind of look you want to go for. So you don't want to have any of the flat edge of the tape sticking out. You want it to all be kind of folded into the bar like that. Nice and clean all the way up.